Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with a limp, and I'm here with something a little bit different for you. It is not the start of absolute victory. I know it looks kind of like that, but this is actually a test video. It's a test video for me to test out some sound, some lighting, and some things that I'm getting ready for when I am going to be filming this. But I thought while I'm doing it, I might as well go ahead and gripe about a few things that are on my mind. Some of the pain that Wargamers go through, which is part of what I'm doing here. So I figured, hell, I'll just record it and let you guys watch it if you want. Yeah, ignore it if you don't want to. That way, at least it'll give me an estimate of this room, because I'm not my office. My office is where I usually do my filming. I have a couple big tables set up where I can film all the different games, but I actually had to jerry-rig myself a big table, as you guys see here. And this isn't even a table. This is just a MDF board that I have hooked together to make a big table out of it, because I didn't want to buy a table just for this room. This is actually our nursery, which will soon be filled with babies. So I had a little bit of time, and I want to have Absolute Victory up for a little while without having to worry about taking it down. But if I set it up in my office, it's going to be there for a while, and I wouldn't be able to film anything else or work on anything else on my big table. So I figured if I set this off to the side in a room where people normally don't go, then I can film a video here, film a video there, do it at my leisure, and I don't have to worry about taking it down as quickly. But again, before I could really get started with this, I had to do a few tests. One of which is to see how much of that sound's coming through, because if you guys see, I've got my soundproofing boards there put up to try to hold my sound in, because my AC unit is right on the other side of the wall of this room. So I'm hoping, it just came on, I'll be able to tell when I go back that the sound is not coming through into the camera, but I'll have to wait and see how that pans out later on. But the big thing that I'm in here doing now is organizing everything. As you guys can see, I've got my counter clipper sitting here. Normal people, normal gamers, they don't have to worry about counter clipping. They don't have the debate over Oregon laminate, which is what one of these are. Speaking of which, highly recommend if you don't have. They are fairly costly. I think this one's about 50 bucks or so, but I freaking love this thing. All right. You can get one. You get one on Amazon. I definitely recommend it. Some people say they give out. This one's the one that I've had since the beginning, and it's lasted me. It hasn't broke yet. I think they said that's like the plastic hinge that gives out on this thing from so many repetitions. I've probably put, I don't know, 20, 30,000 counters through this thing so far, and it's still doing pretty well so far, so no complaints. There's actually a little bit of counter still left in there. But yeah, these things work really great. They have a big one and a little one that you can use, but I recommend this big one over the little one. I've got the little one, and I just never cared for it. I actually got it when I got my first copy of Absolute Victory, which, if you guys remember, if you've seen some of the other videos, that was my first war game. All right, that's what I jumped into. I made the joke about it being like losing your virginity to a porn star, which it really kind of is, because this is a big game to learn. But I'm really looking forward to learning this. I was going back over the rules today, which it's going to take me a little while to read it, learn it, clip it, get it all set. And that's part of why I was wanting to film this. It's just showing what pains a war gamer goes through that a normal gamer doesn't go through. If you want to play a Euro game, you unbox it, box sitting right there, right? You take it out of the box, you fold out the board, you punch the counters, maybe, if it's required. You organize it, you read the 3 to maybe 8-page rule book, and then you play the game. Maybe takes you 20 minutes to set it up, at most, if it's a difficult game and has a lot of little pieces. But it's not too bad. That's normal gaming, whether it's, regular, just generic, whatever type of board games or Euro games. But wargaming is not like that. Very much different. Instead of pulling out a small rule book, you have to pull out this, what is this one, like 60 pages or something, 45 pages, somewhere around there. And this thing has multiple rule books of small, like college-bound type text that you have to pour through and learn the intricacies and sometimes the new words that they've developed to come up with this, and understand supply lines and communication routes and zones of control and all the other little things that you have to pick up when it comes to a war game. And then there might be the multitude of extra books that go along with it. So we've got our Events Booklet 1, Events Booklet 2, Rulebook 1, Rulebook 2, Rulebook 3 that you have to read. You have to understand all of this stuff before you can get involved. And this is just learning the game, right? This is like a college course, right? The normal gamers don't have to do this crap. They don't have to spend hours clipping counters. That's why a wargamer, I think, is a true connoisseur, a true person of the sport of wargaming. Yes, I'm gonna call it a sport. I mean, hell, it's better than a lot of the sports you see nowadays. All they do is spend their time kneeling. At least we're doing something productive here with our time. But yes, we clip all of our counters. Good wargamers clip their counters, by the way. Don't use fingernail clippers. Use the Oregon. And they don't sponsor me either. All right? They don't. Just letting you know, nobody from them is giving me anything. That's just me saying it. Other gamers, they don't understand what it's like to have a stack of counter trays that you have to organize, and that you have to sit here clipping and organizing all the different factions. We've got our German factions separated out by infantry, by tanks, by ships, by aircraft, by different types of aircraft. And then we've got the Americans. So I've got them with German and then Americans. Those are all clipped. I've got the Russians. They're getting ready to be clipped. And then a big pile of counters left to go. I think I'm going to try to cheat over on this side. Let me see. Don't hate on my room, because like I said, this thing's kind of a storage room right now, but I'm using it for this purpose. I've got all my player aids set out over to the side. I'm hoping I might be able to skip clipping these counters. They're like save markers and event markers, smaller ones that aren't that big of a deal, that aren't going to be on the board as much. But all of these player aids are going to have counters spread across them to keep track of. And there's a couple more over here. There's a map under there that I've got to figure out where I'm going to put it somewhere, but I've already run out of space. That is the thing. Wargamers are the only types of gamers that I know that developed a system to put their games up on walls, magnetized, because they ran out of space on tables. All right, so I'm going to take and flick my camera around here real quick, and I'm going to clip some of these counters while I just yap at you guys about some of the other crap that wargamers go through. But something interesting I thought I would show you guys. This is actually a chair I built. Like I said, I do carpentry also as a little side hobby, and my wife wanted some extra stools. Not too bad, I gotta say. I mean, this was the first stool that I've ever made, and I just made it out of some scrap 2x4s that I had laying around. I think it came out pretty well, all things considered. All right, so give me a sec here. Let me flick the camera around. And yes, I know my room here is a mess. Like I said, this room is not the room that I'm usually in. It's not my usual office. It's just set up right now as a storage room for us, but it is going to be a new baby's room here soon, so I do have a little bit of time before I have to worry about that. And the wife was kind enough to say, yes, you can take over yet another room in the house on top of the other rooms that I've already sequestered as mine for more gaming stuff, at least for a period of weeks, because it is going to take me, I would guess, another week to finish clipping this game, learning this game, getting it all set up, and then probably 2 or 3 weeks at minimum, I would say, until I am done filming it. I know it's going to take a little bit of time because I want to do justice by this, right? It's the first war game I ever really covered. When I first got into it, like I had mentioned before, it was down between this and a World at War, which I'm kind of glad I went with this one over a World at War. I think this one's a little bit easier, although neither are simple games by any means of the word. It is definitely not a game you want to learn on. A DVG learning game, this is not. But, I mean, if you're going to do it, you know, the Marine in me said jump in 2 feet first. I remember thinking how awesome it would be to have a huge game spread across a table where I could simulate the entirety of World War II. I was like, wow, that sounds awesome. All the different nations are involved, and I can, war game it out and see how everything would happen and what if things. Wow, that sounds amazing. If I only knew then what I was getting into and the things I was starting. I'll tell you what, if I knew then, I would start my channel way earlier than I did. I was joking around with Gimpy's gal about it. I'm like, damn, I wish we took advantage of YouTube when we were younger and good looking. I'm like, we really could have made a lot more off of it, because I guarantee you, no one in the wargaming community does this for the money. None of us make any money off of it. It's definitely a negative in that. My only hope with it, like cost-wise, financially-wise, was that I would almost break even. That it would help take some of the edge off, because I realized very quickly that war games were a fair bit more expensive than your general run-of-the-mill just board games. Like Terraforming Mars, I think you could get for $45-50 or something like that when it first came out. It wasn't overly expensive. And there are, relatively decent priced war games, don't get me wrong. But if you want a big experience, if you want the chrome, if you want the big boys, the big daddies, war games will cost you a penny. Like if you want Case Blue, what are you looking at? $700-800 for a board game? I mean, most people wouldn't get that. I'm sure there are some in the general run-of-the-mill games. I keep calling run-of-the-mill games, but I know that they're not just run-of-the-mill. I know someone's going to be hating on me in the comments. Damn you, Gimpy, our games are important too. We play Scythe. It's a war game. But no, I respect those games too. I mean, if you're not playing Monopoly, if you're playing an actual game that your regular person on the street wouldn't have heard of, you're doing pretty good. I will say though, before I continue on with the pain that wargamers endure, make sure you support your local game stores, especially during this time. If you can go and buy something from them, do it. I talked to my buddy who owns a store locally, and they're still doing okay. They're getting by, but I know that they're hurting. They're not bringing in anywhere near the money that they used to. And part of the problem is with people being out less, they're not going to the game store and just spending hours. Because I used to go to my game store once a week, right? And I'd be there for at least an hour, and I'd pick up some paint or a small game or something, supporting the store. And especially when all this went down in March, I stopped, right? Wasn't going anywhere. Nobody was. And now no one's going to the stores. So they're not getting that extra revenue that they used to get. I know they're getting by on, the love of regular customers coming by and supporting them when they can. So just make sure you do that. If you got a favorite local game store, or you're near my area, Gamers Armory, Cary, North Carolina, great place. Really recommend them. Good store. They're nice, friendly. They'll order whatever you need. And I take care of them. They take care of me. They're good people. I definitely got to say, they're good people. But Scott, you still need to email me. D-bag, I'm waiting on that email. Anyway, back to the crap that wargamers go through, the pain that wargamers go through. This right here, this takes hours. And you do this because the counters just don't look as good with the little crinkled corners on them, right? So you got to round them off before you have them on the table. And especially someone like me who's going to be filming it, I want it to look good and professional on the board. And unfortunately, there have been some lower production games out there that you had to clip the counters because otherwise they just looked bad. Like the corner was tearing away. It was such a badly put together counter sheet. I remember one. I'm not going to name and shame the game. It's from way early in my career. The counters in that one were so bad that I had to glue a few of them back together, and I clipped it just because all of the corners on almost every counter was pulling away, and it just looked awfuler than hell. After I actually clipped it, it did not look too bad. It looked okay, but you could tell it was just lower quality. I don't know if they had a bad glue, bad laminate. Maybe I got a bad sheet. I'm not sure, but every counter in that game was crap. But yeah, you know, your regular gamer is just not going to get this. What do you mean you're clipping your game pieces? Like, yeah, you got to sit there and produce the game before you play the game. You got to make sure it's tweaked. You know, get yourself ready for the big times. And a lot of people understand punching out game pieces. Plenty of games come with little cardboard packs that you have to punch out a few pieces, but stuff like, you know, X-Wing or whatever, they got a few asteroids, you know, a few tokens that you punch out. Most people use acrylic anyway. They don't understand this. And especially when I first got into it, I was trying to explain to my wife what the whole deal was. And she's like, okay, so you got just a bunch of little pieces that represent army men? And I'm like, no, that's not like army men. It's kind of representing army men, but it's not representing army men. It's representing like a division or corps or you know, battalion, whatever it is, company, platoon. It depends on how big the game is, whether it's strategic, tactical, or dropped. You know, whatever the size of the game is on how big the pieces represent. And she's like, oh, so the bigger pieces represent bigger amounts of people. And I'm like, no, that's the same size pieces. And she's like, oh, okay, I don't get it. I'm like, yeah, I can kind of see that. That makes sense to me. I once tried to explain it to someone that it's kind of like those movies you see where you've got the generals who are laying out their battle plan and they're moving the pieces around the board. I'm like, it's kind of like that, except it has dice to go along with it, and you actually play it out to its conclusion, or at least most people do, depending on, again, the size of the game. But yeah, when it comes down to it, most people are just not going to understand because most games just are not as big, as complex, as intensive, especially when it comes to preparation and learning the game. There are very few games of this nature that you can sit down and in a very short period of time start playing. Yes, of course, there are some war games where you can sit down, punch the pieces real quick, and you'll be playing. Don't get me wrong. Brave Little Belgium, great game that doesn't take long. Not a whole lot of pieces to punch out. You get your damn, I said it twice. Pieces punched out, and the rules aren't too hard. Bam, start playing it. But when you get into some of those bigger ones, you know, some of those larger Eastern Front games, or the Omaha and Normandy beach landings, stuff like this, where it's the entirety of World War II, like Unconditional Surrender, one of my favorite games ever by GMT. That game, you're not going to sit down with it in a short period of time. You need to dedicate an evening to just reading the rule book, learning the pieces, understanding the concepts behind it. And of course, the more experience you have with the game, the more likely it is you'll pick it up fairly quickly, unless it's something like a Butterfield game. Don't get me wrong, love Butterfield, puts out some excellent stuff. But if we're talking like, D-Day at Omaha, or, you know, his D-Day series, or Enemy Action Ardennes, which is another one by Compass Games that is excellent. That's one of the best solitaire games, war games, that I think I've ever played. It is just freaking phenomenal how much effort I could tell he put into it, especially with that system with the chit draw instead of rolling dice. And it had to do with the factors that you're bringing into it. And it really was looking for whether or not you brought combined arms into it. Did you bring tanks? Did you bring, you know, mechanized and infantry and artillery? And do you have this? And if you did, then you get more hits. And oh man, now I want to play Enemy Action Ardennes. It sucks. It's been so long since I played it. I wouldn't be able to just sit down and play that game right now. I have to learn it all over again. That's the experience, though. None of these other games out there are going to, none of these other games out there are going to bring you that type of experience, that Enemy Action Ardennes type of experience that a war game is going to bring to you. Think about it. Even some of the best solitaire games out there, like Descent, miniatures game, right? I really like that one. And yeah, sometimes you got to knock it out, knock the dust out of your clipper. I really liked how they did that game with the app. I thought that worked really well, and you could play that game solitaire very well and miniatures dungeon crawl type deal where you're leveling up and gaining new gear and taking out the bad guys. It worked well solitaire, but even that game is not going to even come close to comparing to something like Enemy Action Ardennes, to the real complex game reacting to you. Are you making the right type decisions? You know, can you beat and overcome the odds that a game like Enemy Action Ardennes will bring in, or the D-Day series? I mean, some of these board games will just really take it to the next level. All right, so I'm going to stop yapping for now. I think I got enough footage to test to see whether or not this camera works, this mic works, whether this lighting is going to work, whether the soundproofing works. And you guys have got to hear me complain about how hard it is to be a war gamer in today's world. And I'm sure some of you older guys out there too are going to be talking about how you used to clip counters to school uphill in the snow both ways, 5 miles, and we didn't have no fangle-dangle counter clippers back in our day. We had to use our fingernails and our teeth to take them down. Whatever it is, just like my folks used to give me hell over. Well, we're using Oregon laminate clippers because they're better. All right, but you guys stay tuned. I'm going to be busting my butt to get through the rest of these counter sheets. There's a bunch that I've got to get through, and I'll be reading the rule book in between that. So we are going to be jumping onto this game here very soon. I do have more of the painting series coming up as well if you're into the miniatures painting. And there's something else that was special that I was really hoping to do for you guys, and now it looks like that might be in limbo, so I'm not sure if it's going to happen or not. I'm crossing my fingers that it will. I'll let you know more about that later on whether it pans out. I don't want to say anything yet because I don't know if it's going to work or not. But if it does happen, it'll be awesome. All right, that's going to be it for me. You guys take care. I'll see you in the next one.